And if you're expecting Dr. Umar Johnson to unite with a Negro who tells black men they should date black women with white mothers or brags about how much they want to sex up a white girl, if you're telling me that they have something good that I need to unite with, then I'm going to have to question your sanity, brother. I am not the only person who should have an institution. I'm one of the last ones on the international circuit, and I'm the first one to an institution of those of us under 50 years old. That's not acceptable, bro. There was no Caribbean slave trade, American slave trade, British slave trade. It was one slave trade, which was largely controlled by the British, and they owned more than half of all Africans enslaved. So if most of us was under one slave owner, why in the hell do we want to separate from other victims of the same slavery? I'll tell you why. Because
ABS and the what movement?
okay, for the first one.
Okay.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, let me answer, black man. Let me answer. I got the question. Let me answer. Okay, as far as the foundational movement, I don't know nothing about that. As far as the ADOS, the American Descendants of Slavery, I respect it. I do not support it, and I do not agree with it. I am a Pan-Africanist, and that movement violates three core principles of Pan-Africanism. Number one is identity. We are one African people. We are not multiples of different African groups. We are one human family. Okay, so identity is very, very important for Pan-Africanists. And for any organization that calls itself American but refuses to call itself African is an organization I cannot rock with. That's number one. Number two, central to Pan-African thought and ideology, one of our core principles is that white supremacy must be overthrown internationally. It cannot be defeated regionally. You cannot defeat white supremacy regionally. We must all rise up at once. It must be an international, concerted effort by the global African family to destroy global white supremacy. Regional black nationalism will not overthrow a global enemy. Number three, okay, and probably the issue that I take most seriously with regard to the ADOS is the disidentification from our African immigrant brothers and sisters. I'm not disidentifying from nobody. Last time I checked, our Jamaican African brothers and sisters were enslaved. Last time I checked, our Cuban African brothers and sisters were enslaved. Last time I checked, our American African brothers and sisters were enslaved. We were all enslaved together. We were all brought from Africa together. Why am I going to disidentify from my Jamaican brothers and sisters, my Cuban brothers and sisters, my black British brothers and sisters, my African brothers and sisters, when we are all being victimized by the exact same oppressor? The Jamaicans were enslaved by the British. The African Americans were enslaved by the British, except for the last 90 years. So why are we separating when we were both enslaved by the same power? So let me get this right. There's only 3 million African immigrants in the United States. There's only 3 million African immigrants in the United States. We're going to start a fight with them, but we're not going to start a fight with the LGBT who has stolen everything that black people have fought for. We're not going to start a fight with the Mexicans who have stolen everything black people have fought for. We're not going to start a fight with the feminists who have stolen everything black people have fought for. There's about 50 million Mexican immigrants in this country, twice that number of homosexuals, 5 times that number of feminists. But instead of fighting with them, we're going to pick on the lowest group on the totem pole, our own kith and kin, African brothers and sisters. A house divided cannot stand. It's Pan-Africanism or perish. I respect the ADOS movement, but I cannot support it.
All right, okay, let's go to the next caller. We got a caller that's calling in from Los.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh. Okay. Good question, my brother. By the way, good question. Okay. I always say that the more we become sincere in this struggle, the less ideology will matter. If you are an integrationist and I am a Pan-Africanist, someone else is a socialist, someone else is a religious nationalist, even though we differ, if we are all serious about the liberation of African people, we will be able to work together across ideological lines. So I'm saying that to say that if there's a brother or sister who is sincere about African liberation, I can work with them across ideological lines. And I do work with brothers and sisters all the time across ideological lines. That's not a problem. My problem, though, is a lot of you assume that just because somebody talks black talk, just because somebody has a YouTube platform, just because somebody hustles cultural merchandise, that they are serious about the liberation struggle. You mentioned two words. You said leaders and speakers. Since when does a speaker become a leader? And if you're expecting Dr. Umar Johnson to unite with a Negro who tells black men they should date black women with white mothers, or tell us it's okay to date interracially, or makes fun about the skin tone of certain Africans, or brags about how much they want to sex up a white girl, if you're telling me that they have something good that I need to unite with, then I'm going to have to question your sanity, brother, because I don't get down like that. And I think we need to raise our political IQ, because we have this mindset that says everybody with a YouTube page talking black talk are serious about liberating black people. And I totally disagree with you. I would argue that 90% of the so-called black conscious YouTube personalities are opportunists, con artists, hustlers, and attention addicts. Opportunists, con artists, hustlers, and attention addicts who sit on YouTube all day long gossiping about almost nothing so they can get your attention and get some YouTube dollars. That's all it is. They not building no institutions. They not nation building. I should not be the only personality in black consciousness who has acquired an institution. I am not the only person who should have an institution. I'm one of the last ones on the international circuit, and I'm the first one to an institution of those of us under 50 years old. That's not acceptable, brother. Stop calling YouTube people leaders. It's an insult to every real black leader we've ever had.
Let's go back to the phone line. We got Los Angeles on the line. Los Angeles, good afternoon.
Okay. I hear the question. Let me answer it.
Thank you, brother.
Reparations is very important to many Pan-Africanists, including myself, and we will get it. But if we get it, depends on how we approach it. Last time I checked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I am a student of history, but the last time I checked, there was one African slave trade. I'm almost certain that there was one African slave trade that took some of us to the Caribbean, and took some of us to Europe, and took some of us to America. I'm almost certain that there was one African slave trade. So if there was one African slave trade, there should be one reparations movement. The worst thing we can do is let white supremacy off the hook by dividing the reparations movement into parts. It needs to be one international, coordinated, and consolidated movement. There was no Caribbean slave trade, American slave trade, British slave trade. It was one slave trade, which was largely controlled by the British, and they owned more than half of all Africans enslaved. So if most of us was under one slave owner, why in the hell do we want to separate from other victims of the same slavery? I'll tell you why. Because there's an African-American arrogance and an African-American elitism and an African-American selfishness that says, I want my 40 acres and a mule, but I could give a damn if the other Africans in the world get theirs. United we stand, divided we fall. We get paid together or not at all. Did you see the NBA draft last year? Damn near every kid who got drafted in the top 20, mother was white. The whole was an ice storm. Kim Kardashian can marry 10 black. Kim Kardashian can get a new husband every year out of the Negro community if she wanted to. That's how thirsty these Negroes are for brown, yellow, red, and white flesh.